Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing Futures. Today's conversation centers on a classic tension in B2B. How much effort should go into fueling top of the funnel versus converting the bottom? Demand creation and demand capture both matter, but every team wrestles with finding the right mix and adjusting it as the company matures. We are joined by two great guests who bring deep practical experience on both sides of the funnel. But before we dive in, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourselves and share a bit about your role and your current focus. Elena, do you want to start?
Sure.
Welcome.
Thank you for the invitation. I can share a little bit about myself. I'm Elena, about 10 years of experience, mostly in B2B marketing, currently working at SimScale, leading the demand generation team. I joined about 5 months ago, so I'll try to split some of my experience between what I've been doing here and my previous experience for 6 years at Firm Labs, which was a manufacturing 3D printing company. And then the current company at SimScale, it's an AI native simulation software that enables engineers to get very quick results and then get their products out to market faster. So very two different but interesting industries, and it's been a lot of fun, actually, to explore kind of the company, where we're at, how we're going to be building this year, but also leading into next year. And precisely the question is what we're spending a lot of time in Q4 is how do we balance a little bit more the spend between brand and capture, and how the two motions between commercial and strategic will change next year, and where do we put our spend efforts, our campaign efforts and messaging efforts. So definitely curious to share also more with the.
It's Chen Guter. So really nice being here and nice to meet you. And I'll introduce myself a little bit. So I've spent the past 18 years now building and scaling brands across basically every stage. So I started my career in Procter & Gamble, managed billion-dollar icons like Pampers and Pantene and Fairy and Always and more. And then transitioned into hyper-growth startups like Lucia, the sales intelligence platform, working on a PLG motion. And then transitioned into the global platform of AppsFlyer, who's the market leader in marketing measurement. So I worked on quite different businesses throughout the years. My passion in marketing has always been pretty much the same, despite all the changes. So it's building brands that connect emotionally and earn the trust of the customers, but not for the sake of being a love brand, but in order to drive measurable growth. So that's my passion. I'm very results driven for what you might say a brand marketer. And now I started just this quarter in September at Dig. So last quarter, sorry. And now I'm actually bringing the experience that I had as a brand marketer for so many years into helping brands understand what's really happening on social video at a very, very high scale. We scan billions of videos on a daily basis, and basically providing access and visibility to insights that brand leaders never had before.
Well, great introductions. Please, let's talk about that connection of brands with revenue. I think everyone wants to hear that in today's episode. So let's begin with a quick pulse check, okay? When you look at your marketing efforts today, where do you place the emphasis? Do you lean more towards creating demand, toward capturing it, or do you reject the split altogether? How would you describe your current balance and why?
I'll be honest, I don't believe in demand generation. I don't think it exists. You can't really generate demand if the underlying problem of the customer isn't real. And if the problem is real, if the pain is already inside your customer burning, then the demand already exists, right? So for me, our job isn't really to manufacture something out of the air. It's really to reveal the pain that already exists. And then the demand always would follow the same rule, right? Real problem creates real motion. And our jobs is really to maybe accelerate how fast this happens so that they find the solution of the product that we bring to the world. So it's more about finding this product market fit and really understanding the pain and the problem of the customer that generates the demand. Then us marketers need to do that. Does it make sense?
Yes, but if you would need to decide on how much education you put on, and how much effort you put on educating your customers about that pain point and knowing that you can solve that pain point versus actually just capturing the demand that they are telling you, or they are filling forms, or I don't know how you split those efforts into education or capturing the efforts.
Yeah, so I think because we're a very early stage startup, I still don't have the right lane that I can tell you is now proved, right? I keep every single day looks different, and I'm still shifting between really identifying the customers and the verticals who are already suffering from the pain that we solve, into really responding to the ones who know they have the issue and they need the solution. So for me, it's more about meeting the demand, matching it, maybe amplifying it through the marketing that we do.
Awesome. Elena, what about you?
I think it was interesting, like when you were talking about, like every time sometimes I introduce myself as like I'm leading the demand generation team, I think it's starting to get this negative connotation, even like on LinkedIn, like a lot of people are like, oh, demand creation, like that's BS, right? Sometimes like that doesn't exist. And to that sense, I agree to that. Like it's about sort of like brand building, right? More than just like creation of like a problem. Yeah, like there needs to be some sort of problem. Otherwise, like people aren't just gonna buy like your product. But I think it's about kind of like, to your point, like, Joaquin, or like, how do we make sure that our brand matching that solution, or like whatever need exists in the problem in the market, like how do we expose our brand in front of the kind of like the target audience, or those people that would find like our product the best fit. And I think this is what we're calling like this brand sort of like awareness or brand building, whatever we can call that. It's kind of like the notion of, like how much effort are we putting in like PR, thought leadership, like a mix of different programs that are not necessarily like a lead capture, like just a lead magnet of like what we are used to. Like five years ago, we would be talking about just like white papers and webinars and gating all the content possible. And then today we're so much more like talking about thought leadership campaigns and just like getting our voice out there and going a bit more back to like building the brand and like that feeling and kind of like the solution driven motion of a brand. And for us today, it's like, I kind of like, I could relate to this, like the day or the quarter shifts like very, very much sometimes, because it depends on the company priorities. But what I can tell about SimScale today is that because we have these two motions around commercial and strategic, they kind of require a little bit more different efforts. So I think on strategic, and especially looking into next year, I think brand building is a lot more key. And we are spending probably like 60% of even the budget more on like brand building versus just like purely lead generation. Whereas on the commercial funnel, I think we're kind of more reverse. So it's more like 60% lead creation, lead capture, if you like, and the rest is more kind of like brand build, which kind of organically comes as we're doing this for the strategic level as well. But on the PLG side, I think we're spending a bit more time like on PPC, kind of optimizing for that. Whereas on the strategic side, it's a lot more like thought leadership. We have a great CEO actually, who's like very outgoing and very outspoken, that has tremendously helped that. And things like, even though it sounds like a bit like cliche, but PR, I think we're going to try some of that next year, but more on a storytelling front.
I think it would be great to keep talking about like how you build demand. What strategies have worked best now in your current experience or previous experiences building long-term brand awareness and engagement? Mm-hmm. You mentioned, Elena, that webinars was something quite big a couple of years ago, gating content, and that's shifting towards thought leadership. I don't know, Chen, do you agree with that, or I don't know?
Tell 100%. I'm a big believer in thought leadership. At the end of the day, I think one of the intentions we have is really to put ourselves out there. At Dig, I can tell you that we still haven't existed long enough for me to talk about what's working long term, because we're still at this messy stage of building. But I can tell you that already now I can see how thought leadership is working for us. Specifically, the moment we started really showing prospects what actually happens inside social video through thought leadership. So the signals and the insights and the narratives that customers are truly talking about in user-generated content, everything started to click. And that's actually our differentiation as well. So what I'm trying to do, top of funnel demand generation with our marketing, is really to demonstrate that eye-opening value that Dig provides. And sometimes it would be through an industry report, right, that we generate from our own unique data on the platform. Like, for example, helping brand leaders from the skincare category to really understand what's going viral on TikTok for Gen Zers. And other times it would be thought leadership content or real-time marketing content. Like, for example, analyzing the Apple product launch reactions in social video in real time. So I think the key here for me on thought leadership and what we see is working for us is not shouting features or explaining the product. No, it's about demonstrating Dig's value so clearly that potential buyers feel the solution before they even see a demo. And that's what we're trying to do and that we see is working for us right now. We have our thought leaders in the company, mostly founder, CEO, Ofer Familia. He is actually, we're both very lucky, Elena.
Yeah, I know.
He's also very good at content creation and making a message. So he's doing a lot of that. But also we do sponsored, obviously, on LinkedIn mainly.
The best performing content, I guess, right?
Yeah.
What about you, Elena?
Yeah, I think we kind of started there. I honestly think it's, you gotta, as a marketer, you probably are very lucky if you have someone on the company who is like great at creating content, that especially if they're closer to the product. In our case, it's a much more like technical product where it's a simulation platform and it has like usually it's like a very big buyer committee as well. And in some cases, they need a little bit more explanation. To some extent, it makes me believe that you have to create some demand there just because not a lot of people still kind of like understand why it's important or why this would be different from like a solution that it's in the market, that it's quite outdated or very desktop heavy versus like cloud based. And so we have an influencer program or a social creative club that we call it that includes like our founder, CEO, and 2 engineer based, so the VP of engineering and another person on the team, who are like very high profiles and they're very much behind the product as well. So they're sharing content. It's like, very much like close to the pain points. I think some of the best performing ones are actually kind of comparing to what we expect AI to do and what actually it does. And in much of like in many of the cases, it kind of highlights this gap as where AI kind of like has reached in helping like usually the individual contributor in the day-to-day or like ChatGPT, all the LLMs are at. And like the engineering world is still kind of like not getting the benefits, and those perform quite well. Like when you do a little bit of a meme style and just kind of comparing the 2 worlds, but like getting to the pain point of the user, but in a funny, engaging way sometimes. And the other ones are a little bit more like, coming from the platform perspective, from the pain point perspective, how do we facilitate the journey for the user? So I think that type of content is resonating really well. So we do both organic and also boosted through LinkedIn ads. Similar story, like conversion rate for those in comparison to our other website visit or engagement ads is quite, it's you can see the difference. Like click-through rate is sometimes like 9% or 7 to 9% for those, and it's pretty impressive. And we measure things like then audience penetration all time, and that type of category does very well generally.
And what about the consistency that you need to have when you're creating content? Let's say organic content. Do you need to post daily, weekly, monthly to expect a funnel and to expect results? We will talk about converting this in a second, but let's talk about the consistency that you would recommend our listeners.
You're referring to organic LinkedIn content? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so hard to predict, right? Because one post can become viral and then the next 3 posts don't generate any interest. So I made, just the rule of thumb of publishing on a weekly basis. Sometimes I manage to do more than that, but the minimum is really weekly basis. But that's just the rule of thumb, and something that I can do with the current capacity of the very small team here.
Yeah, we do also we actually post about 3 times a week on organic, and through the influencers, our CEO does about one time per week, and the other two, it's on average 0.5 per week, because they're also quite busy and it takes some time, right? You also need to not just guide them, because the content is quite technical, but they also need sometimes some effort. If we're doing a video that, of course, needs more time to shoot. But for now we are sticking mostly to just text, basically text copy.
Yeah. Well, of course, you need to look at the resources that you have. If you are a one-person team, of course, you can't publish daily. But according to Neil Patel, who's very informed on this and has analyzed a lot of different brands that do this well, he says that to do it well, you need to do it daily and in every single platform. That's the recommendation that the best marketers are saying. Of course,
that, at AppsFlyer, that's what we used to do. We used to publish daily thought leadership content, both from a team of thought leaders around different areas of the company, but also from the AppsFlyer account. And it's a long-term play, right? You don't see immediate results. It's like another drop and another drop and another drop. And then at the end, you start seeing impact. So yeah, I would definitely aspire to daily publishing.
Yeah, and also that's something very important for generative. I always forget the term, but yeah, if you want to appear in LLMs, apparently that's another factor that's super important, as well as PR. Elena, as you were mentioning, it's something very relevant to be named.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing AI kind of pick up a little bit, slowly. It's very slow, at least the measurable impact, let's say, the direct, referral from LLMs, but it's going to get there, I think. Of course, you have to optimize for it, but at the same time, I think it's just, you have to make sure that you show up, because as we know, this whole no-click experience is going to get even more real, I think. Yeah, it's going to be, I think we're in an interesting point as us as marketers, trying to navigate a lot of this different sort of moving pieces between different funnels that you have in the company. And then also so many things changing with AI today. It's quite interesting. So for sure, fun times to be alive.
Exactly. Okay, so let's move down the funnel. What strategies have worked well for you in capturing demand? How do you turn existing interest into pipeline? I don't know, through paid sales enablement, retargeting. I don't know. You tell me.
So for us, I'll talk for the experience here. I've been here for a few months, right? So for the commercial funnel, I would say for smaller deal sizes, which I think the company has for the majority of the time, it was based on the commercial funnel, the smaller deal sizes. And most of that has been very successful through organic and PPC, that good combination of the two, I think. And PPC still works quite well for the commercial funnel. For the strategic business, enterprise business, I think it's a little bit harder to reach them. We tried a few different things. The indicators were there, but it's hard to convert that audience in that sense. So I think capturing strategic, it's a mix of inbound and outbound. I think the two of them have to work quite well. So right now, I think strategic for us is a mix of different channels to capture. So it's first of all, it's the work on LinkedIn. We completely revamped how we are doing LinkedIn ads, primarily focusing on the strategic funnel. It's still a bit more awareness, and we're doing most of the retargeting as lead gen component, but it's just 70-30 split. We're seeing the initial kind of insights are there to sort of capture that demand from strategic accounts, but it's very small numbers. I think it's going to take us some time to build that up as a channel in a successful, measurable, scalable way, and kind of starting to put more budget in as we see results. So the two of them kind of go hand in hand. The rest, it's I think events, smaller scale events, work very well for pipeline acceleration mostly. So not necessarily a capture like a lead gen, but it's like as a pipeline acceleration, those like are quite successful. And then on the other side, like outbound is starting to pick up like a lot more. So it's a mix of a lot of cold calling or like cold outreaching, and now we're adding a layer of let's say outreach from the interest audiences or like the interest engagement that we're seeing on this like thought leadership, like boosted posts from LinkedIn, and then just like boosting them or like following up through the external agency that we have for outbound. So I think on that strategic funnel, I would say like that is the mix. For the commercial and trade shows, we're going to be investing more next year, I think, because a lot of the strategic buyer is still kind of like out there on the big shows. As for commercial, as I said, mostly it's just PPC organic. It's doing quite well in the community. We have a PLG sort of, So sort of like having the platform there and making sure that people can reach out and see the product for themselves. It's been like a huge help, obviously, as a SaaS platform. So I think those are kind of like the two major differentiators for the two funnels.
We also go for a mix of inbound and outbound, obviously. But I think the key strategy that we follow is really, I'll start it all over. It's actually an interesting story. I've been a user of the category of social listening that I'm now disrupting with Dig for my entire career, right? So I basically experienced the pain that we're trying to solve firsthand. So in theory, what's the problem, right? Social listening in theory sounds super powerful. You get control of the brand narrative, you monitor every mention, but in practice, the way this category works is that you as a marketer get basically buried under millions of alerts every time your brand's name pops up online, okay? So there is no real way to see the big picture, understand the narrative, and especially now when over half of social media is in video, and then really comes Dig. So because I know the pain so well, my objective is to put the value or the demo, ideally, in front of my prospects as much as I can. The way that I do it is basically extract unique data from our platform on different verticals and generate insights that these brand leaders would have never had without Dig. And it's such an eye-opener that I see that when we use it, either on outbound, in outreach, or even in inbound, it's actually working amazingly. The other thing that we try to do is field marketing, right? Because ideally we want to get to the right people and show them a demo, because as soon as they see the demo, they understand the gap they had until now. So for me, it's a mix between these two. Creating unique data and doing inbound and outbound with this unique data and get to as many people as I can with our demo. Now, the thing I'm trying to do is understand how I can demonstrate the product better in digital marketing, because face-to-face is obviously not as scalable and field marketing is very expensive, as we know. So that's my next thing I need to crack.
And when you both mention outbound, whatever, if it's cold calling or email marketing or LinkedIn messaging or whatever, are you going 100% cold, or are you picking people that already show interest on LinkedIn or something? And I don't know if you have any preferred tools to capture that intent. I don't know if you're using Clay or any other tools to do that.
Yeah, for us. Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, I'm just getting exposed to outbound right now because, nature of the business. For us, it's a bit of, I think it's mostly actually crawling through, like, Clay, using Clay, basically just, like, crawl the most engaged ones, like, on our platforms, like, at least the part that I'm involved in, like, kind of supporting the outbound efforts. And I think the sales team is also, like, doing a bunch of, like, cold outreach, but, like, mostly through emails, I think, and they're trying to reach out to some of their like ideal customer accounts that we might have had like some sort of like engagement, but they're not really like in the prospecting or further down the line in the buying stage. So it's a bit of both. Yes.
Same here.
Cool. So outbound could work in just translating what you say on both way, on building that demand, actually, like putting the pain point in front of consumers that maybe they've never seen an ad or a thought leader comment or whatever, and also capturing the demand, like just picking those that are very engaged with the content and retargeting them with a human retargeting. Interesting about building brand. And to close the main discussion, how did you connect long-term brand building efforts with pipeline and revenue expectations? How do you communicate the value of brand-led work internally while still meeting short-term performance goals?
That's the million-dollar question, right? How do you show that something that is so unmeasurable is working? Yeah, it's not easy. I have to say that because of my background, my entire career basically taught me that brand is the engine behind every single metric we obsess about. So I think that when people know your brand, they trust your brand, they understand your value, everything becomes easier, right? The cost per acquisition drops, the demo conversion increases, the conversations are deeper, the sales cycle is shorter. You can take a higher price, right? You can justify the premium. So for me, when I was in bigger companies, I used to do a brand health check and actually show that the marketing work delivered an increase in brand awareness, an increase in the brand equity versus competition. But now I actually feel so confident that brand is the engine behind everything that I don't feel the need to prove it anymore. And I can confidently focus on the metrics that the board or management is looking to see. Continue and do very consistent brand work behind the scenes.
I think that's a good point, right? In terms of you can see a lot of those metrics follow, right? Like when you have the cost of acquisition, for instance, which sometimes can go wild, like right when you're trying all the different things until like you get it to like a stable level. Or you will see like your cost per lead or any kind of like metric that you try to optimize like so hard when sort of like you have a very good like brand reputation, like brand awareness, you will see a lot of like those metrics kind of like work in your favor eventually. And then for us similarly, or at least like I look like often to like our brand search, as like a more sort of an indicator of like how are we really growing our brand, like is the search volume kind of growing, direct, like how is direct performing as well, which is still like a very big pain point for me, like in terms of like kind of unpacking where direct really is coming from. I think it's like a struggle also for a lot of marketers that sometimes it becomes like 30% of your pipeline and you're like, I want to know where you're coming from. And there's like plenty of tools, of course, but in some cases it's just like harder to unpack that. But yeah, I think that those indicators between like is organic and direct, like kind of like are those two channels growing? If they're growing in a healthy way, you will see, I think that like the brand contribution is there. But even in in your paid channels, if you see like good conversion rates on your ads, like a good engagement rate, like good audience penetration, dwell time, like on your advertisements, I think it's like there are definitely good indicators that your content is resonating, your brand is there, like you have at least like you're connecting well with the future prospects or future buyers. So I think kind of all comes together when you look at the leading and lagging indicators overall. And then pipeline overall, right? Like if your pipeline numbers are going in the right direction, hopefully you don't have to justify through a lot of metrics and do a lot of digging, but the numbers will speak for itself.
Yeah, when the numbers are good, you have no problems.
Nobody complains, right?
No, but I think that But I think if I had to give one advice to more junior marketers when they're under pressure from management or boards to reduce brand spend, collect those little anecdotes, and the sentences you hear either in a demo or, on comments like, I saw your post and thought of contacting, or your report nailed our problem. These little sentences, these little anecdotes are the one that actually are the reason to believe that the brand work you are doing makes sense. It resonates with your customers. So one tip I'd have is collect those, because they actually pile up into what we call brand equity and into perceptions of the brand. And that is what, as Elena said, drives the pipeline, right? So I think at the end, it's just one machine where brand is basically the foundation and then you build your entire marketing funnels on top.
That's a very good recommendation. And actually, just remembering something that Neil Patel also uses is,
you love Neil Patel.
Yeah, I quite like him. Yeah, to be honest. And there is something, for example, in every product demo or meeting they ask in different steps. First, how did you hear about us? And they collect that information in the CRM, of course. That's the other thing. You need to be strategic and collect that information, not store it somewhere in your laptop, put in your CRM. And in subsequent meetings, digging a bit deeper, like, okay, if they said that they mentioned LinkedIn, okay, maybe you can ask for 3 or 4 specific campaigns. That, do you remember which campaign did you, I don't know, out of curiosity, do you remember the last campaign that you've seen? Things like that, and storing that information, I believe, could be very useful, as you mentioned, Chen. All right. Well, thank you so much. We've covered a lot today. From building long-term awareness to converting demand and how both sides support sustainable and predictable growth. Thank you so much for joining today's episode. It's been a brilliant conversation. And for our listeners, if you like this episode, please give us a like and share this with your colleagues. Until next time, thank you so much.